Well, here we are, author interviews on Amazon Live. Always so much fun. You know, Amazon, way back in those days when it was just a bookseller, it's kind of fun to get back to those roots and really focus on the books and the authors who put their heart and soul into some books. And we've got some great guests today. And so with that, I'm just going to... I'm going to make it this way because you guys have written, I don't know how many books do we have on Amazon? Charles, Rocks?
Yeah, I guess we've got 13 novels. No, 12 novels.
12 novels and 7 short stories.
Yeah.
Right
now.
And 1 novella.
Okay. All right. Hey, let's go ahead. Rocks, let's have you go ahead and introduce yourself. And then Charles, we'll have you introduce yourself, and then we'll just kind of get into the whole flow here.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Scott. So I'm Rox Burkey. I by day work in a technology field doing integrations for a lot of different customers all over the globe, and which is a lot of fun. It's great, but you know, you get enough technology and in my spare time, since I don't care for television, we write.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah. And so definitely putting that into truth with the books. Charles, let's go ahead and get your introduction. Tell the world who you are.
I'm a solution architect. I usually work in the telephony arena, building global voice platforms. You know, I'm a techno geek by trade, both day and night. I try to keep up with the latest trends, and my passion is the security field, where the monsters prowl from the Darknet, and they give great backstory information, techno babbled stuff that we like to be able to bake into our fictional thrillers, because that's the part that's true.
Yeah, this is one of those interesting things because so many authors, what's that question that you get, especially if you write novels? You know, it's how do you get your inspiration? And really, it sounds like it's just your everyday life.
It shows up on you know, unsolicited and in an avalanche form is what happens. I mean, it comes in, it's like, hey, look at this, look who's been hacked, look at these people, they paid this much money. Mm-hmm. And then now I'm tracking on where all the cryptocurrency is being mined, watched. Mm-hmm. We're watching all that stuff that's like, you know, Vietnam is actually the high runner. Can you believe that?
Really?
For the use and peer-to-peer stuff of cryptocurrency.
Well, we'll kind of talk a little bit about, maybe we'll get some time. We'll kind of talk about cryptocurrency and the whole blockchain phenomenon and the fact that nobody can get graphics cards because they're all going out into this world. But books in general. And so, you know, when I was a kid, you had to write stories and practice writing. Not something I was really interested in. What about you guys? Was it something early in your life that took hold, or did it come later?
You know, I'm one of those kids in high school that wrote poetry because it was romantic and it was fun. So I did a lot of that. I also wrote some short stories. Mm-hmm. And so I always liked writing. In my business career, I started with writing technical papers and white papers and those kinds of instruments to convey information to people. So
Yeah.
Charles, much more interesting writing background now.
Yeah,
He got in trouble.
I got in trouble. Like you, it's like, okay, we want you to learn about corporate business and how to be able to write. So, being the entrepreneur that I was, we put together an underground newspaper in the high school. To much chagrin to the teachers, like, did you have to say that? These observations. Anyway, fast forward to the day that we're in a consulting role with Nortel, and Rox and I were typically sent out to be able to do business analysis, the write-ups, and I guess I never outran my shady past, because I once wrote an analysis for what's wrong with the business for and I still can't tell you who it is, but it was a large, well-known federal organization that said, "This is great stuff. Don't print it. No, you can't. Don't tell anybody what this is or where you got it, and don't give it to the people that you're writing about." I'm like, "Well, that's not fair. This is pretty cool stuff." He goes, "Yep." We'll be embarrassed and drummed out of our roles. So it's about that point in time I thought, you can use this as a weapon, Charles. All I is somebody to help aim it, and voila. She is introduced and said, "Here, come on, let's go do some technical fiction."
The other reason
Technical fiction.
Yeah, we had written technology books, a couple of technology books at the request of a couple of publishers. But technology's moving so darn fast that they were old before they ever really got off the ground. So Charles didn't want to write anymore. So I noodled around with the first book in the series and came up with, I don't know, a good dozen chapters maybe. And I took it over to him. I said, "Hey, how would you like to write fiction and we can kill people?" He was in.
It's so Rox, you started earlier. There in high school, you're writing poetry, and I often think of a young Stephen King, little Stevie King coming over maybe to pick my daughter up and go off for a date. And while we're waiting, it's like, "Well, Stevie, do you have any hobbies?" "Well, I like to write." And it's like, "Oh, okay, well, sounds interesting." And then takes off, and then, "Oh, look, little Stevie left his notebook here," and you start thumbing through. Would have been frightening for a parent at that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That time that I was in talking to Stephen King, and he said, "What I like to do is I like to paint this beautiful picture, reality, flowers, everything the way that you'd imagine it, and then I release the monsters."
Yes.
Now, I wasn't really talking directly to him. I was in an auditorium with 3,000 other people, and he wasn't really talking to me, but you get the picture, right? It's still the same concept.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. That the process. I think part of the process, and I want to talk a little bit about some of the storylines that you have in your books, but also, but it's a lot of this process, because part of the author interview series, and we have highlighted the Enigma Factor in there. So I want to encourage people again that here we are on Amazon Live. We've got our authors. You can ask questions live right now here in the chat, and we'll talk about it. So we've got Charles, we've got Rox, we've got a lot of their books. Make sure you click on those, and best thing to do is add to cart. Hey, and the holiday season is coming up. It's Christmas time. It's gift giving time. And I can't think of something better than a book for someone, transport them in. But let's talk about the process, because like Isaac Asimov, one of the things that he talked about was, he said he always knew for his stories, he knew the beginning and the end. And he just kind of, as an author, took the journey with his characters. And you're talking about Stephen King releasing the beasts in this beautiful sceneries. Charles, what about you and Rox? What's the process? Especially here you are. Just to remind people that you are not you're not a couple. You are separate households. So writing, but you have obviously written a lot of books. So you have a collaboration process. But let's talk about the process.
So we have a patent pending technique we call literary ping pong. Um,
I
I'll
love it.
I'll wake up one morning and go, I have an idea,
Mm.
and I'll whack on it about 2 hours, and then I'll shoot it over to Rox, and she'll take a look at it and either say, okay, we can this is within grasping terms, or she'll say, what were you thinking? Can we go back to where you didn't lose me in the bakery? Because that's our favorite phrase. Let the other one know that I'm not tracking on this. So, but it's a polishing effort, back and
Mm.
the character smithing, and sometimes I'll be honest, we don't know how the end is going to show up because as we're
Mhm.
going through, we'll see, oh, look at this. Here's an idea.
Well, and the characters talk to us, so we may think they're going to go over, over here, and then they decide they want to go over there, and trust me, they will go over there. But we keep, we're kind of strange. A lot of people use storyboards and post-its, and they
Mhm.
have their walls covered with we use a spreadsheet. Every kid,
Of course you do. You're technical people. You live in that environment, so of course you use a spreadsheet to track your book.
yeah, we track all the characters, we track all the plot lines, we track
Mhm.
all the significant places, because the novels themselves occur in places all over the world. Because
Mm.
of our travels, we have a lot of international experience that way. So we keep track of everything, that way we're not like totally confused. Um, but we do go back and forth. And we do that as a polishing effort, but also to try and get the books to sound like a single voice. So
Mhm.
when there's two people, it's hard to sound
Right.
like a single
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah. Even our editor says, which one of you wrote this? It's like, yeah. So we don't. Those are trade secrets, so we don't divulge that even to the world.
Well, I like that you're, again, using the spreadsheet to track all this stuff. And I think it's just perfect with who you are as humans. And I was thinking about Conan Doyle in writing the Sherlock Holmes books, where one scene, it's sunny and daylight, and you turn the page and it's night and raining, because he obviously wasn't using a spreadsheet to track his work.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the process. We try to plot out where we want the story to go in general. It gets modified because of characters, because of circumstances, because he comes up with an idea that really has a lot of merit going into something we weren't planning for. So
Mhm. Yep. So again, I just remind everyone, click on the books in the carousel. We've got quite a number of them in there, and you can take a look. But let's talk then about the storylines and the characters. And you've got this series running. There's some themes. So let's kind of talk about that without giving anything away, because we do want people to enjoy the page turning.
Yeah. Now, and just to make sure that we articulate this correctly, each of the books is part of the series. That is a true statement, but they are written, and we're maniacal about this. They're each one written to be a standalone book. So if I only get you for one book,
Mhm.
you're going to enjoy it. You're not going to say, rats, why can't I have gotten the other 8 books and ahead of this? Is it richer that way? Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
No, point taken. But you can still enjoy each one of the books. And we started off with identity theft. And each one, and we hit on this concept of, let's take a particular theme,
Mhm.
research it with the stuff that we see day in, day out, come across our PCs and email blasts. And then we stepped off into, a couple of bad boys that wanted to cloak their illegal moving business, moving drug lords. So they cloaked themselves from satellite monitoring. Book
and
number, yeah,
that was the Enigma Rising.
yep,
Mm.
It has the satellite tracking.
right. Book number
Okay.
book number 3, we got into battlefield communications and drones and nanotechnology as a combination. and then a couple of unsavory types that are running amok trying to get the good stuff that the contractors have already assembled. So it's and kidnapping and lots of action on that particular one.
I just highlighted the Enigma Rising in the carousel, so you can see that. And we did get a comment. Joshua just says, "I love these books," and so that's a
Cool.
good thing. Yeah. So we love to. So thank you for the comment. But so the standalone, so that's great. So people can get the books in kind of any order, so they don't have to feel like because we do want everyone to get all the books because it looks best on your shelf when you have a complete set, right? I mean, nobody wants the set of encyclopedias missing H through J or something. So you want all of them.
Yeah.
But we tackle different subjects. We tackle, ransomware, which, is even more relevant today than it was not that long ago in the Enigma Wraith. And then we do cryptocurrency, which we had mentioned earlier on in the Enigma Source, which we're actually going to re-release as a second edition in about 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, and I'll just tell everybody to click on the book, and then you can click on the author page for both Charles and Rox and follow them. That way you'll get notifications when new books come out, which is always a great thing. This is one of the beautiful things about the technology that works in our favor, and we definitely want to take advantage of that. So, okay. So we've got these different topics that are very relevant in our lives. So identity theft. Hopefully, people that are listening haven't been a part of that, but that is just horrifically frightening.
Yeah. The Enigma gamers, we have this game of extortion by people running supercomputers, holding whole cities hostage for ransom. So that's in book number 7, the game, the Enigma Gamers, and that's not too far fetched. Spain's that way. Barcelona, I'm sorry, Barcelona's that way. They all the way down to the parking spots in the city are tagged to be able to let people know I'm available for parking your car. The trash, the lights turn on. Okay, what happens if somebody infiltrates that system and says, pony up and I'll let you have your city back? So we do that in a couple of different scenarios, and it's Rox was right. We started that concept with a Virulent software prototype in book 4, the Enigma Wraith, and that's where we got kind of interested in. Okay, what exactly can you do with this? Well, you can take a whole hydroelectric dam offline. You can foul up all the supply systems for a NATO scramble. We talked through some pretty interesting and relevant fears that a lot of times get published in medical military journals. Like, hey, we've role played this, we've looked at that, we've they've got their own cyber folks that every once in a while they'll call up and say, Charles, where did you get this idea? Because it looks like too much like what we're planning. So
what's interesting about the novels is that people have kind of often tagged them as science fiction, which is one of the reasons that we're going back through and doing, second editions. One, because we've learned how to write better, but also to change some of the covers. And that's because they did kind of have, at that point in time, a look of science fiction, but it's more of science fact. It is technology that is available. It is technology that is turned a little bit on its ear. I mean, identity theft is very real.
Sure.
It's not a joke. It's,
Well, what's really curious too is that we have that the concept on book 10 of cryptocurrency, and we actually postulated that Venezuela, before they announced it, would be desperate to be able to salvage their economy using the blockchain cryptocurrency derivative. And we started that like in January, and by March, Venezuela had announced that they were going to launch their own cryptocurrency. It was very gratifying, to know that Madura was reading our book, our early versions of our book, and the idea. Wow.
So yeah, so you're the current version of Arthur C. Clarke. So of course he, creating the communications satellites, right? So his concept. So you guys are predicting the. Definitely
Not
got to
trying
read the
to,
books, and
not trying to predict, but yeah, your comment about satellites is really, really timely too, because one of the more recent volumes, we actually kind of postulate a way to snag onto the satellite zombies that are circling our planet that everyone has kind of forgotten, lost communication, got bored with. We've found a way to kind of tap into them. It's kind of interesting in one of our recent books, which would be the Enigma Threat.
Yeah, Enigma Threat. There's about 2,000 satellites up there that people either abandoned, no longer are functioning, or they're outmoded. So they're just, okay. So we postulated, well, what if you were to use that for a clandestine operation? And
right.
that's what we did.
I want to highlight the Enigma Threat in there because I think there's a lot more technology out there that we're unaware of, that someone in your position that kind of lives and breathes it, and your career has followed a lot of this evolution, and as things come and go. So cassette tapes and 8 tracks, right? We don't use those much anymore, but they're still around, and that information is out there. There's these satellites, as you've mentioned, that are disused or dissociated from their original purposes, and there's a lot of fiber optic cable that's laid around out that there's opportunities there. So you guys, because of you have this understanding, you can think of what could someone do for good or for ill. Yeah.
Well, we have the cyber good guys fighting against the cyber thugs. Okay, that's
where we got started with this. It was the cyber good guys assembling the team, or the next generation of the team, I should say, because they basically we start off really in our mythology in World War II, 1939, with the invasion of Poland. We postulated the Poles grabbed the Enigma copy of an actual version of the Enigma machine, which
right.
used for their enciphering, encrypting their battle plans to be able to transmit back and forth, and nobody was able to hack it at that point in time. We postulated that they grabbed it, put the original on the plane going to London, the last plane to London from Warsaw, but they made a copy before they gave it to the Brits, and they decided they would also fight tyranny and learn the secrets of the Enigma machine. And that's the beginning of the R Group dynasty, information dynasty.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's also part of what we highlight in the novella called Out of Poland. So, most of the stories are current day, period, but they have references that fall back to the noble honor and morality of that period of time by the founding fathers of the R Group.
Yeah. And so each generation is taught the moral high ground, the ethics. Here's how the decisions, and here's where we stop them. Here's where we do combat to be able to rescue the everyday folks that are like, what happened to my bank account? It's all empty. Where did it all go?
Yeah. So we do have a question, and it's how long does each book take you from start to finish? And this is an interesting one because you have two factors, right? You have two people, which means you can write twice as fast, but then you also have to collaborate, as you say, send it back and forth and kind of polish each other's up. So does it take faster, shorter? Tell us about that process.
Early on, when we were first coming up with the ideas, they actually ran about 8 months from start to publish.
Wow.
Because the ideas were so exciting, the characters were so exciting, they were talking. now it's probably about a year to 14 months.
Mhm.
We've kind of changed the strategy on releasing books. We've been doing the second editions, which has taken up some time as well.
Sure. Mhm.
So wouldn't you say that's about right?
I think statistically we had like 2.2 books a year up through about book 10.
Okay.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah,
We can pull this from the spreadsheet. So
Yeah, and then what we started doing is it was intoxicating doing the short stories that are in a lot of cases are backstories, things that didn't fit into the novel that we say, okay, this pair of this couple, where'd they come from? How did they get to be at this stage in their lives? And and it made sense to be able to say, well, let's go explore them. So those turned into fun events, because they're so if you count those in with the main novels that we do on an annual basis now, it's probably still close to about 2.2, 2.1, novels a year. So
yeah.
with the kind of quality we want to turn out, the research that goes in, sometimes it's sporadic and sometimes it's like we're going to dig into this one a lot and then give the
Yep.
answer.
And
We
do you ever, you talk about traveling too. Do you ever intentionally take a trip, or are you a little more opportunistic and incorporate your travel experience into the stories?
We do a little bit of both. Rox and I have been to Brazil to do technical training to the people down there. We've been to Ireland to be able to work with the technology people building some of the software products.
well, you've been there.
Yeah.
So sometimes it was work travel,
Uh-huh.
where one of us would go to one place. Sometimes it was workshops like Brazil. I actually went to Japan to do workshops on my own. But then also, he and his wife just love to travel. They love to, and they go to fun places. So those are always incorporated.
Yeah. So we always see something that's different. That I saw something at the Hansford Museum for where they built the first started mining the uranium that was going to build the first atomic bomb there in
Okay.
Washington. And I turned around and this gal is snapping pictures of the diagram of the atomic bomb, and I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if this was a clandestine operation and she's gathering information to be able to help feed this to the psychotics that want to next book. I need a moment here, and I'm running around looking for my crayon and my big cheap tablet, to be able to write all this stuff down. And I sent it to her, with some notes, and she goes, "We need to talk." Okay,
Yeah.
you're not taking your meds again. I can say I know it. You're not taking your meds.
And yet it was put into the Enigma Dragon. That particular scenario went right into that story.
Wow. So let's talk about the bad guys. Tell us about kind of the bad, because of course, if you go into Disney, they even have they have a store dedicated just to Disney villains. We love our villains.
Absolutely. So we've got what would be your favorite villain? What would you and that we try not to make them
We
too.
have two different kinds of villains. We
Yeah.
have villains that end up, gosh, they just aren't with us anymore.
Okay. Mhm.
They were that good. Remember the part where I said we could kill people? Yeah, they fall into that category. Then there are the redeeming villains, because we have them in more than one story perhaps, and they have some redeeming quality that says, I really could be good. If you just let me be good, I could be good. So we have a couple of those. So I don't know that a couple that were deliciously evil, and we won't tell you whether they're living or dead by the end of the series.
That's right.
Now
That's right.
was a chairman Chang in China, who just seems to be thinking of everything evil that he can do to take advantage and to line his own pockets. He's been wonderful in several books.
Yeah, and we have full representation for the Russians. We've got a Russian cyber czar mobster. He's a mobster by night, and he works for the government during the day. It's not a big stretch, but you give a character behind them, and it's like, okay, Um, there was one that we built that he was very complex, very complex bad guy. That one reviewer actually said I didn't want to like him.
Mm.
I couldn't help it myself. I didn't want to like him, but I did. I felt sorry for him. I felt sorry for that guy. And like that's probably the best compliment I think I've ever read about our work. I mean, we've got a lot of good compliments. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
that one was like that character got through somebody's emotional armor and made them regret that this guy was having a bad time. So we take that kind of feedback very, very seriously.
Yeah, it's I was thinking Tom Clancy. He would write these characters, and you'd start getting this backstory. You start getting, and then you turn the page, and then they're dead because you're thinking, oh, this person's going to be carried on, and I just wonder, as a writer, do you get attached to the characters as well as you're developing them, even knowing that they're going to not be with us?
Yeah, actually, to the point that it's wonderful to kill them in the story because I mean, I know it sounds really cold, but I won't go to jail for this, so I can be transparent.
Yes.
Um, they are not redeemable in that they only have one focus, and that is to be evil, 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 evil. They don't have redeeming qualities. They just want to be bad. They want to
Right.
take and they want to walk over people, and everybody can be walked over. We all have somebody that's walked over us in our life. It's the way of the world. But some people just continue to do it and take advantage. And so those are the ones that, I mean, you get attached to them and you want to have it be a delicious demise.
And
Right.
they can be very sorrowful. One of the femme fatales that it looked like there was nothing that this person could do. And we had one of our good friends. She's consumed all of our books, and she said, "I don't know how you keep this person around." And she started off with book 4, and by book 6, she's like, "I just love her. She's wonderful." So her character morphed over a couple of books. So it was she'd earned that right to be able to live on.
And for anyone that's ever taken like a creative writing course, we talk about the hero's journey,
Yeah.
and so let's talk about the heroes of the story now, and then we kind of talk about this character development as well. But let's talk about the good guys, the good folks.
So we have our good guys kind of fall under the umbrella of the R group or our heroes. And originally the R group was, like a righteous group. They want to do the right kind of thing. And they came from the founding fathers who took the Enigma machine from Poland. So that's where the group came from. They're friends. They aren't family, but they treat each other like family. And grew up the business, and their offspring were taught that moral high ground. And so when we open up the story with the Enigma Factor, the very first one in the series, that's part of the introduction to the R group. One of the main characters, in fact, really the depiction that's on the cover of that book is Jacob Michaels. Jacob Michaels was raised in New York City by his mother and had no knowledge of the R group growing up. But he was trained by his mother, who was a technologist, in a certain fashion. He's multilingual. He's very studious almost to the exclusion of social life. He paid his way through MIT, and he just wants to focus on being the best that he can be. And so he's tested by the rest of the R group before they ever tell him who they are. And so he again makes that kind of choice. So he's one of the characters that continues in the book. And the characters that are good guys, they do grow, they do evolve, they aren't static. So even though the books can be read out of order, as Charles said, the books are richer in order, and that's because they grow up.
Right.
and so they evolve. But the core members in the original early days are going to be Jacob Michaels,
Petra.
Petra Wondowski, and Quip, and Julie. Those would be the primary characters. And Quip is a really fun character because he creates the group's supercomputer, which, by the way, the supercomputer has its very own name.
Yeah, Ichabod. Now,
Okay. All right.
one of the things we do throughout the stories is we poke fun at the technology that the world that we work in, because we use acronyms all the time. And
Sure.
so we started off with, okay, let's have a supercomputer. And she looked at me and I said, well, what do we call him? I said, well, his name is the Immersive Collaborative Associative Binary Deterministic Systems Override Systems, or Ichabod. And she went, I will never remember that. So I can remember Ichabod. All right. So, and so we have several
Yep.
made up terms that we use to, remind ourselves that, hey, there is some absurdity to the
Sure.
technology world that we reserve the right to be able to poke at.
Yeah, I think some of the best stories that we have that emotional swing, right?
Yeah.
Where we can get very intense, but you can lighten it up for just a moment.
Yeah. Well, we've even got Ichabod on his journey. I guess he's the other core member for the series.
That's true. He is the other core member.
He basically flirts with several different human emotions, and that's kind of an intriguing thing because by book 12, it's all about the artificial intelligent wars, and he's on the side of the good guys because of his tutoring, and even one of the books, there's a side backstory with him trying to understand humor and how to be able to pitch humorous anecdotes, and he's studying it the whole time. And so him and Quip are going at it. Quip's like his mentor. Here's the definition, and he goes, okay, let me think about that. And then the story moves on, and then something will pop up, and Ichabod will say something, and then Quip will say, "Were you trying to be funny?" And so we do that that character point counterpoint to the point where a lot of people think that, hey, Ichabod really has achieved total consciousness, and so we pull short of that before we get to that conclusion. But he is part of the R group, and he is almost, if not family, his family.
Well, people doing AI today would like to believe that they've created something that is operating independently. So
yeah, it is, unfortunately, in many cases. And so we kind of make a point of guardrails for technology. What are your guardrails so that we know who controls what and when and who? Are we the slaves? Are we the masters? Or do we all have our own place in the world? And that's something people have to think about on their own. But we are kind of on this side of the world that says, technology should not be totally free to do anything without consideration. So Ichabod has adapted technology over time. So he's now fully speech enabled, and he's got decades of machine learning backed into him, and that sort of capability. And he has friends that are supercomputers that he works with too.
I love it. And how would Ichabod do on Jeopardy?
He'd win.
Yeah.
Before the question was asked.
At one point, we actually have him and his. They have him and the other supercomputers around the globe. They have what is called the Algonquin Roundtable. They call themselves the Art Forms, and they play digital cards with 1,000 different playing cards. Deck of cards. Because they're so good at the mathematics, they have to be able to increase the odds to be able to make this thing work. And Quip at one point protests, well, can I play? He goes, are you an art form? And Ichabod, he'd say, okay, go ahead and go back to work.
Oh, I love it. So would you classify these books as thrillers? Where would you put them? Because you're intentional about changing the cover to not be kind of pulled into the science fiction realm. But where would you classify that?
Technology thrillers, and it's interesting.
Technology thriller, yeah.
Yeah, when we originally released them, that was not a category. So it was like science and technology
Yeah.
was available.
Suspense.
And so, science fiction suspense was available, and thrillers were available. Now there actually is a technology thriller category. So we would like to think we kind of helped that along.
Yeah, because that's really cool, isn't it? That you kind of open the door. Not only did you predict Venezuela, but you created a new category. So I just want to encourage everybody. Click. We've got a number of the books of these Enigma books in the carousel. Click on those. Don't even worry about it. Just add to cart. If you want to be the hero, send it to a friend. It's gift giving time. Pay it forward. Get the book. Put their address in. Have it sent directly to them. And this technology thriller category, I think it's really important today because we are surrounded by things that people are trying to protect us from. Apple's just made changes in their privacy to try to ease some of these things. We're always getting updates on our technology to prevent hackers, is the common word. But I think your villains go beyond just the kind of malicious hackers.
Well, evil.
They're coming in from the what we call the Darknet. You'll see that referenced in or the dark web is some of the other you'll see that term used, and there is a whole community. And I actually had to explain this to another author the other day. He said, "What exactly is the Darknet, Charles?" Well, imagine the internet with two different colors. We've got the internet that you and I understand. We know how to be able to navigate. I can go to Amazon, click and buy stuff. I can shop for whatever I want. There is also an organization, a subset out there that you can't quite get to, but it holds its own forums out there on the internet. And if you know the right handshake, the right
right websites, right connection, those kinds of things. You can
go in there, and for a fee, you can advertise your wares, and your wares are human trafficking, narcotics, weapons dealing, having people hiring a hitman.
Don't go crazy.
Yeah. So those are all the pieces that there's a whole business model out there on the dark net, and that's all it is. And it's so sophisticated as to I research it all the time when I find information on it. It is staggering that it looks like a standard MBA program put together the darknet to be able to say, okay, here's the manufacturing piece, here's the wholesale distribution, here are the retailers, and all of it funded with cryptocurrency. That's where I get, we keep getting back into, okay, well, how is this transaction being done? Because money laundering is really naughty. The government hate it. They, hey, where's my taxes on it? And like, well, no comprendo. So we're fascinated with the way that they do business, and it looks just like a legitimate business model.
Wow, this is so. I think we hear these terms like dark web, and those of us that are not versed in what that really means, I think probably the naivete is harsh for us. And so your stories, although fiction, they are based in this reality, and I think it's something that we can take a look at.
Yeah, it can be really scary for a lot of different reasons for people, which is why we kind of put categories with each of the books, like identity theft with the first one and so forth.
We even take one of the books and postulate how to be able to predict the future. It's in book number 5, The Enigma Stolen. And the premise, the opening statement is, if I can predict the future and your future and act upon it and steer it to my advantage, then you have no free will. Everything is It's going to work to my advantage. And so we explore
Mhm.
that concept, and that's basically a technique of big data lakes.
Mhm.
With enough
Mhm.
data, you can predict the future. Is the premise, and it's not that far fetched.
Well, I think that's one of the things with the actuaries that work with insurance companies. If you get enough data, you can prove some things now, whether they're relevant to the business or not. But that big data is available to us today, and it's not something that could really be parsed down with a human just looking at those numbers. But with these supercomputers, we can look at many variables and look for correlations
Exactly.
that we wouldn't be able to find otherwise.
Now, some of the research I'm doing right now for backstory material, looking at quantum computing, uh,
Mm.
really gets into predicting the future based on the way that it puts together. Um, I confess I'm not as well versed on quantum computing and quantum networking as I'd like to be, but that's something I find that's about 10 years out before it starts showing up
Mhm.
as here's a usable model to be able to do exactly that, predict the outcomes for several different scenarios. The
Mhm.
funny part about that is quantum computing. If you try to use one of these things to be able to run a spreadsheet, it won't. It's not designed to do that. That's not what it does. I mean, that you've
Right.
got
Yeah.
more smarts to be able to run a spreadsheet than a quantum computer. So it's like,
So you can't use it to track your book progress.
No, we've been trying to figure out that problem. It's
yeah,
one of the big, what can we do?
yeah,
Yeah. Well, one of the is we talked about you're saying that you're changing the covers, and I'll just say it's kind of it seems brave to me to go back and do second editions or extra later editions of a novel, and because there's so much more that obviously you guys are putting out new content.
Yeah.
But going back and changing it so that it doesn't fit within science fiction, but or isn't confused with science fiction. One of the things about science fiction is it's been a way for us to explore social issues in a way that is a little bit um, not firsthand. It's a little bit removed, so that we can discuss these things.
yeah.
Um, is this something that you want to do within these technical thrillers,
No,
or do you
really,
stay away from that?
social issues, not so much other than, general good versus evil, evil
Hmm.
intent and good intent. You know, we are all people, and we have that basic premise. We are all people. We're not labels. We're just people. But we do have underlying. Are you really kind of for the good, or are you really walking that path that's not good? So
Hmm.
that we do. We stay away from at least some of the major social issues, of course.
We're storytellers,
And
to be
Yeah.
blunt. I mean that's what we want to be able to. We want to entertain.
Hmm.
We want to have the plots make sense. What is it that is it Arthur C. Clarke or Dan Brown that said the difference between fiction and nonfiction is that fiction has to make sense. So I love that quote. So
That's great. You
yeah,
know, I would put you in the Tolkien realm then, because his contemporary C.S. Lewis loved the allegory, right? Loved to be able to
yeah.
use the stories to promote ideas, whereas I think Tolkien actually said he hated it, that he just strictly wanted to be a good storyteller.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when you did ask an earlier question about some of the work that we're putting out. Part of why we've slowed down on the just one novel a year, is
Mhm.
that we got really interested in jazz by doing audibles,
Oh yes, uh-huh.
and the audibles were kind of a surprise. I'll be blunt. Got that first when Roxanne gave me her first four most terrifying words in her vocabulary of "I have an idea." Um, uh,
Yes, definitely.
yeah, we started.
Nothing more frightening than an idea.
Yeah, from either of us. I mean, there it is. And we got in and got involved with it, and it was quite surprising because there's a lot of
Mhm.
people that say, "Well, I don't read anymore." No, no, no. I said, "Well, well, why not? Well, I got I got a 90-minute drive I got to do. I got this, that, and the other. And I just don't have time to read. I said, can you listen? And that's where we kind of got that. Okay. Now, when we say Audible, let's be very clear. I mean, it isn't us reading it. I mean, that's like, no. This is a voice actor coming through, and we spent a lot of time with him, chronicling using the spreadsheet. Okay, fair. There it is.
Right.
Here are the characters. Here are the voice inflections that we recommend. Don't dictate. I'll let him. We let him do that. Here's the accent that we imagine, because here's their nationality, male, female. Need this one to kind of snarl. This one's needs to have a nice, robust. Those kind of directional statements, and give him some of the flavor of the story. And we build those signposts for him to be able to be creative, and it's obviously worked, because we won 3 awards for the Audibles.
Congratulations! Yeah, it's one of the things. So I did put a publication out, and it was shortly after it was out that a friend of mine, who is an author, said, I make more money on the Audible books than on the written books. And so, of course, then I recorded that one and turned it into an Audible, which was a fun process.
Did you do the voice yourself?
Yes. Yeah. There's a nonfiction book, and it's interesting because it depends on the author. But when I've talked with poets, I can't imagine somebody else reading their poetry and recording it, because there's that heart and soul of the poet. But different stories, when I've listened to on Audible, having those actors read it and the different voices, again, I mean, you're deferring to somebody who that's what they do.
Yeah, and it kind of pulls you in a different way. The first time we listened to an Audible by who we consider to be the voice of our series, which is Derek Scholes, he actually did the first recording for the Enigma Rising. And when we first listened to it, it was several years after it had been published, and we were pulled back into the story because of how his inflection was. So it was a different feeling, a different sense. I can understand why some people really enjoy Audible.
Yeah.
I would think being able to do both, right? Just to read the book and to have the Audible version.
Yeah.
Because as they say, who was it that said rereading a book is like visiting an old friend?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I like that.
So you've got these books out. You've got the series coming. You're predicting the future and doing some research about predicting the future. What's on the horizon for you guys? And as we're kind of winding down here, where can people find you? I mean, obviously we can come to Amazon, but are you out being able to meet the public as some of these restrictions from the pandemic have eased? Tell us what's going on.
So we are actually going to go to a festival called the Pecan Festival in a place called Seguin, Texas, on the 30th of October. So anyone who's in Seguin, Texas, we would love to see you, talk with you. People can find our website, enigmaseries.com. And from that particular location, there are book trailers out there for all the stories, all the novels. We'll even autograph copies if you really want an autograph copy for Christmas. We've been known to be able to do that. We have some wine charms that we have created. So we have lots of things.
Yep. And the phrase is, we got cool stuff.
Yeah, there we go. We're on Facebook as Enigma Series. We're on Twitter as the Enigma Series. So, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
That's wonderful. And what do we have for looking forward to?
So what's coming
coming year?
Book number 13, the Enigma Tracer. and it's an interesting compilation of. We're going to be collaborating with another author who's going to write a parallel book to it. So what we'll do is we'll bump the characters up against each other, and again, we're fighting for a noble cause, and we'll have to leave it at that.
So this sounds like a very interesting concept. So two co-authors writing novels. We kind of talked about that process. Now you're bringing in a third author, but with a different book. This will be should be very exciting.
Yeah. It is going to be exciting.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
And then we're also working on another one at the same time that's going to be part of a mystery series. So other authors are writing other books in the mystery series, and it is called the Enigma Flower. Sorry, it took me a minute to remember the name, but it will be out at the end of next summer.
So, wow. Yeah. So you've got just a ton of stuff going on.
We try.
And you've got jobs on the side.
Yeah.
I know my hours at my job are pretty full. They run about 50 hours a week. So
yeah.
The last thing that we got that's still hanging out there that we're still working on is the screenplay. We do have a screenplay built off the out of Poland novella that we put together. Quite proud of it. Different marketplace, different mindset, different rules of engagement, obviously. So that's a little bit tougher to be able to get into.
Well, it's interesting. I think it was Michael Crichton was criticized by some authors because so many of his books were made into movies.
Yeah.
And he was criticized saying that he writes, he wrote for the visual form, and he just says, no, I write that in a way that it conveys the visual, and so it makes it easy to make a movie out of it.
I'd back that statement up easily. That's quite fair.
Yeah. And I think maybe, as you mentioned with Stephen King, just painting these beautiful landscapes that people could walk into. And then he releases the monsters. But well, I'm wishing you well on the screenplay. And I realize that that's a very different world.
Yeah.
But obviously there's so many channels out there for people to view video content. Obviously here on Amazon, you can tune into a lot, and people are able to release their content, their videos, make their own movies, and release them right into Amazon, which is quite a concept.
It really is. I think that, again, technology has opened up so many avenues for people to be creative. And, I guess one of the good things with the pandemic is that people have had time to nurture those skills. If there has to be something good out of the tragedy, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So as we come down to the last bit here, Charles Rocks, just thank you so much for coming on live here on Amazon, and people can watch live here. Of course, we do have the replay available, and so you can watch. And but again, click on the books in the carousel. Add them to your cart. Give them as gifts. Be the hero, and just have a terrifying 2022 looking at all the potentials of these technical thrillers. But again, thank you for being here. And I will just let you guys share a little bit. As you said, I often say this is the greatest time ever to be alive, because you can express yourself in word, in video. And so what words of advice do you have for folks? And then we'll wind it down.
I would say that life is good, and it includes a free trip around the sun.
Every year. Every single year. No, I think if from an author-reader perspective, if you're an author and you want to get something out there, keep trying, keep working at it. You'll find the successful path. If you're a reader, then as an author, the best thing you can do for an author is do a good review. And I don't mean like a 5-star review, though those are preferred, But I mean, do a
Honest
review
review. Yeah.
and an honest, fair statement
Mhm.
about the book, and let the author know, what you like, and that's the best compliment you can give any author. And
Good-
I
yeah, good feedback.
review bunches of books on Amazon, so trust me, I'm practicing what I preach.
I love it. I love it. Well, again, Rox, Charles, thank you so much. And so everyone out there, when you get these books, let the authors know. Share how it maybe touched you, or how you shared it with somebody, and let everyone know about that. So, all right, we're going to wind this one down.
Thank you, Scott.
Charles, Rox,
Appreciate you.
have a fabulous day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.